Staying safe in a single corner just because it currently pays the bills is the fastest way to lock yourself out of your true destiny. Today, we are breaking down what it looks like to slaughter your current season and why true dominion requires you to endure a temporary moment of looking completely non-productive. If you're holding onto a tight comfort zone because you're terrified of the silence of transition, pull the plug. It's time to build. If you're hungry to walk in your God-given purpose, but the process feels slower or more hidden than you expected, you're not alone. This is the Jesse Wood Show, where we give voice to the real process behind God-designed purpose. I created this space for faith-driven builders like you to help you recognize the importance of the season that God has you in and what He's doing in you during it, because what He builds in you matters just as much as what He builds through you. I'm Jesse Wood. Welcome to the podcast, and let's build together. I remember when I was working as a custodian, a janitor at a massive two-story children's school. It was actually when I was in Bible college. And every single night, my assignment was to vacuum that entire building. Every classroom was actually pretty large, and it was way too large for the vacuum to be able to vacuum the whole space from just one electrical outlet. The cord wasn't long enough. It's not the vacuum's fault. The rooms were just big. So I'd plug the vacuum in, I'd clean all the areas that the vacuum would reach, but eventually the cord would pull tight and I couldn't move any further. Now, if I had chosen to stay plugged into that one single outlet forever, I could have guaranteed that that one little section, that semicircle of reach would have been perfectly cleaned every single night. But and nobody could even look at me and say I wasn't doing my job well in that one spot. But there was an entire two-story building of territory that I had been given dominion to steward over. And it was my job. And so by staying safe and just wanting to stay plugged in or even be lazy, perhaps I'd be leaving the rest of the building to get dirtier and dirtier. So staying safe in a single corner just because it keeps you comfortable is the fastest way to leave the rest of your divine territory in absolute ruins. Let's look at 1 Kings 19:19. It says, "So Elijah went from there and found Elisha, son of Shaphat. He was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, and he himself was driving the 12 yoke. Elijah went up to him and threw his cloak around him." Elisha wasn't sitting around broke. All right. He was running a major, successful agricultural operation with 12 teams of oxen. He was plugged into a secure system that completely paid the bills. But the moment the prophetic cloak hit his shoulders, his current territory became too small. And many entrepreneurs treat their business like Elisha's field. So you keep your hands on the plow of your current job, your current platform, your current situation because it's safe, but you are completely ignoring the massive global mantle that God is trying to pass to you. Helen Keller says this. She says, "Safety is a superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure." That's so good. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. When you choose to prioritize safety over stewardship, you aren't just locking yourself down. You are completely freezing your momentum. And when your momentum freezes, you lose the exact energy required to step out into your next assignment. You see, true transition doesn't mean you stop working. It just means you keep the switch of your work ethic turned on even while you are changing your connection. When I was vacuuming that school, I didn't have all night to get the job done. I was actually trying to finish the entire building in record time. I'd already been in class, had a short break before I went over there, and I hadn't even got home to try to do my homework or anything else. And so every time I reached the absolute limit of the vacuum's cord, I didn't even turn the vacuum off. I didn't sit down. I didn't take a break. I would literally leave the power switch on the vacuum, and I'd go pull the cord out of the wall. And actually, I try to like Indiana Jones whip it so I wouldn't even have to walk all the way back over there. Sometimes, that would damage the plug. Don't recommend that. My mom would always would always get in trouble with my mom for doing that at home. But nobody's watching and I'm running and gunning. So I'm trying to whip that thing out of the wall so I don't even have to walk over where it's plugged in currently and already get it going to the next destination, the next plug. And for that few seconds that I was trying to limit as much as possible, the vacuum would go completely silent. It just shuts down. Nothing happening. And it looked and it felt completely non-productive. It's out of power. But I'm already moving. I already know what's coming next. I'm already looking at the next space that I can't reach right now, but I'm ready to go into. But it requires me to go get plugged in somewhere else. In the exact millisecond, like you just barely get the plug into the next socket, barely get in there. Woo, the vacuum cranks right back up, ready to go. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind." And when you are making a major pivot in your life or your business, you have to realize that a moment of being unplugged is not failure. It's a strategic pause. Now, people on the outside, they might look at you during that transition and think you've lost your spark or your production. Wonder, what are you doing? You had it all going on over there. What's happening? But if your internal drive is permanently switched on, then you're not worried about it. And the moment you connect to that next season, that next place God is calling you to plug into, hey, come plug in over here now, take care of this section, your power and your acceleration return instantly. And this is an unknown quote, but it says, God doesn't guide stationary objects. Keep the switch on, make the move, and trust him to navigate the momentum. You have to be willing to look non-productive to people who don't understand your blueprint. Because if you never risk that temporary silence, you will never expand your capacity to protect the people who are coming after you. And this was a huge situation and mindset for me I had to overcome when I worked at a mortgage company and I was punching a clock and I ended up walking out of there because of the corporate, old classic corporate rug pull. And I tried to go plug into something that God said, that's not what I'm telling you to do. He says, I want you to plug into me and being with me for a season. And so I did. And so instantly I became all about being discipled by him, spending time in the presence. And it looked on the outside like I was doing nothing, but every day I had a mission and I had a mandate. My switch was still turned on. And then guess what? When God brought me the opportunity to start building and be mentored in the financial space, God says, hey, I want you to now unplug from the season you've been in rest, rewriting your identity and sonship. And now I want you to go plug in over here. And guess what happened? I plug in and boom, skyrocket, acceleration like this. Why? Because my switch had never turned off. And I'm even more gassed up in my identity and what God's calling me to do. I was so excited for the next season. The silence of the transition, though, is tough. I'm going to be honest. It's where the enemy tries to weaponize the fear of lack. But looking non-productive to men does not mean that you're unprotected by the kingdom. Because in that gap, let's go back to the vacuum. When I pulled that cord out of the wall, the motor died. Noise stopped. And if you pause in that moment, in that exact window of transition, there's a terrifying question that could punch every single entrepreneur in the gut, which is, let's be honest, where's the money going to come from? How am I going to provide? When you unplug what currently pays the bills, you enter a wilderness of vulnerability. And I don't know if you've ever been vacuuming and you're going so hard that you hit the end of the cord, you don't realize it, you accidentally loosen the cable a little bit and the motor dies, and you're like, oh no, is it broken? And you think catastrophe has happened. That's happened to me too. And it's like, oh no, we just lost connection. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just we're making a transition. So you have to look at your family, look at the kingdom, look the eyes of the loving Lord in the face, and trust that God has you covered in the gap. But the fear of lack will tell you to run back to the old outlet, just to feel the current again, just to be like, I'm doing something. We're still here. Okay, it's still working. All right. But the gap isn't a trap designed to starve you. It's a testing ground designed to prove who your source really is. And if you are tracking towards dominion, truly, you have to trust the provider more than you trust the paycheck. And the difference there, Winston Churchill says, fear is a reaction, but courage is a decision. And I would even extend that to say faith is a decision. And don't forget, paychecks are fruit of sowing and working that seed. And you're working with the master sower, the Lord. And as you're praying and asking God to walk you into your purpose, I'm talking to purpose-driven business builders and entrepreneurs on this podcast. I'm assuming that's you. Then you and God are in this beautiful dance of building partnership and trust. And it's like saying, well, I don't trust you as a partner. He's saying, I'm going to cover you while you make a move. It's like in military, tactically. I used to work with training military. I did some role play activity. It was pretty fun. It taught me a lot. And what it did is it turned me into a very dangerous person on the everyday paintball field with just regular people, like my brothers and my friends. So much so, if we were doing team paintball activities, they would say, Jesse, you only get one person, and then it's the rest of the six of us versus you and your person. But what was really cool is I'd say, okay, that feels outnumbered, that feels crazy, but I'd look at my partner who's like, oh my gosh, why is this happening to me? Why are they just putting me with you? We're going to get demolished. Like, no, here's what's going to happen. It's not 2 verse 6 or 7 or 8. It's going to be 2 verse 1 6 times. And we're going to work together because they're not going to be communicating like we are. We're going to stick tight together, and we're going to cover each other as we go. So, all right, I'm going to cover, you move around. Boom, we take somebody out. And then, all right, here comes the other person. Let's corner them. You move. I'll pin them down, and you go around the side, you get them. It's this beautiful dance. And it might feel like you're outnumbered. It might feel crazy. But when you and the Lord get this kind of partnership going on, he's saying, hey, unplug for a minute. I got it. So you can make a move and plug into the next thing. But if you let the fear of provision dictate your position, you will never make the pivot. You won't make that move. And you have to look at the tools of your past season, everything you've been through, every experience, and realize they have served their purpose. But it's not your permanent position. And so now you have to execute an intelligent resolution and begin to move. I recently had a couple of really deep and great conversations with a brother in Christ. He's a guy already working in the financial space, but he's operating in very specific small sector. It's very, very needed. But he is very limited compared to what I can do as a holistic, completely independent financial professional that has a massive platform. There's so many conversations I can have with people. I'm very dangerous in a good way financially. We're like a primary healthcare physician, but instead of healthcare, I'm in wealth care. And if we really need a specialist in an area that I'm not licensed in or the expert in, I know the person, we could pull them in, and I still sit with you in those conversations and come back to the headquarters with you, and we figure out if it's a good deal or not. And he even took part in one of our team meetings, told me he loves our culture, the organization, saw how everything we got lined out, so he knows exactly what to do. And it's like, man, it's all right there. But he confessed he's terrified of, if he unplugs from what he's currently doing, he might mess up what he's got going on right now. And he's a little afraid to move because he thinks that leaving might be like he didn't make the most of what he's got going on right now. And I've heard people say, I feel like I need to see this out a little bit longer. Why? Your loyalty is to the Lord. Listen to the Holy Spirit. And why did you make that decision in the first place? Did we do it out of fear? Do we do it out of our own idea? Did God even tell you to do that in the first place? We need to just take a step back and go, why have we even made all the decisions that we've made? And repent to the Lord for being entirely self-sufficient. And go, all right, God, what are you really asking me to do? And so he's got this dream in front of him to be a full financial professional. Tells me he's always wanted to do that. But you can see him working out in his mind if he's going to be okay with just staying where he is for forever and let this thing pass up, or unplug. Let the motor die for a minute and plug in somewhere new. God never wastes a single season of your preparation, though. And your current field, I guarantee you, even mine right now, I already know this, is not your permanent destination. It's a training ground for the next invitation. God's going to go, invitation. All right, you wore that out. Great. Here's the next. Here's the next. Here's the next. And you've got to figure out how much of the purpose and the potential that God has anointed over your life and given you in your heart, how much you want to see, how much of that you want to see realized. And that will determine how quickly you trust him, how quickly you move when he says go, how quickly you stop when he says stop.
Vision isn't permission to rush. It's an invitation to trust. Like Abraham, sometimes you're called to move without seeing the full destination. Everyone wants to build what they feel called to build. But calling often comes before visibility, like David in the field. When God gives you a vision, it's not so you can force it to happen. Like Joseph, there are seasons where the dream is clear, but the path is quiet. Before God builds something with you, he builds you, the builder. Like Moses in formation, and Nehemiah laying foundations that last. The Purpose-Driven Business Builder's Blueprint was created to help you recognize your season and build it right. Learn more at purposedrivenbuilder.com.
You got to decide how much of that you want to see realized in your life, and that will change everything. Going back to the story with Elisha, 1 Kings 19:21 says, so Elisha left Elijah, and went back. Remember, he's running a whole operation when Elijah shows up, and like, now this is happening. That's how God works sometimes. But it says he took his yoke of oxen, slaughters them. He burns the plowing equipment to cook the meat, gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he set out to follow Elijah and become his servant. And I just think this is absolutely brilliant, the way Elisha transitions here. People say that he burned the ships. It's really a phrase that we use modern day, but he had a highly intelligent resolution to that season. He didn't just smash his equipment in a blind rage, walk away empty-handed. Instead, he knew this is over. What can I do to make the most of what this season has done? So he slaughters the oxen, uses the wood from the plows to cook the meat, and he throws a massive feast, feeds his community, blesses his family, closes that chapter with honor. Nothing was wasted. And you might be terrified right now to step into financial services or scale your business because you think it means your past years were a waste of time, or your current commitments. Maybe you're in this this narrative that you might be betraying someone by moving on. But if they're not able to grow with you, or it's just middle school and now it's time to go to high school, it's just time. And it's not a loyalty thing, and it's obedience thing. And where you've been was the weight room. You've been working out. You've been training. God's been using that field to train your endurance, build your character, test your work ethic. So when the mantle finally hits your shoulders, you got the muscle, the stamina, the vision, the faith, the partnership with God to carry that thing. Alan Watts says the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, join the dance. I love that. Join the dance. Change by very nature is movement. And what you've got to get in your mind right now, what you just got to cement in your spirit, is that when God put Adam and Eve in the garden and said, go, take dominion, be fruitful, and multiply, he never intended it to be a sprint to earn up enough and do enough to just hang out for the rest of forever. Hanging out for the rest of forever is living in full glory with the Lord after we've passed away, or this world as we know it is gone, and you're in heaven or whatever. That's when we've got it for forever. So even our American delusion or dream of retirement is not kingdom. And this is actually an interesting conversation I have with my clients. I have to kind of figure out, when we're doing retirement planning or goal planning, financial structuring and mapping to hit their goals, what I love is talking to kingdom-minded people, that we're not talking about sitting on the front porch in a rocking chair watching cars go by, or grandkids play in the front yard. That's in there. It's included. But we're talking about, man, how would you like to be able to wake up each morning, just do exactly what God's calling you to do, and not have to worry about it's making money or anything? Now, ideally, you can get there in your mindset and your identity and all of that right now, today. But there is a transition. When you get older, the old take care of the young until the young take care of the old. And it's beautiful. It's inheritance. It's generational. But ideally, we're expanding. We're still taking dominion, even if we're coaching from the sidelines actively. This traditional idea of retirement, when we go in the kingdom, it gets thrown out the window. It's still always going to be, God, what are we doing? I have this amazing, beautiful couple as clients of mine. We recently converted. We did a rollover last year. They've been very faithfully stewarding their finances, their 401k while they were working. Retired last year. Was still doing a little bit of things, and so this year, on the anniversary of their retirement date, we converted their money. I'd positioned it to be able to be a permanent lifetime income solution to go on top of their Social Security, building a personal pension plan. And we had such a beautiful conversation, because we were trying to figure out what the plan is. I'm like, guys, what are we doing? How's life? And they're like, well, we're not slowing down. Actually, I retired from the job, and now I'm doing more ministry. I'm about to go travel, and God's calling me to do this and that. And the gentleman's in his 70s, and he's like, I feel better than ever. I feel more called than ever. I'm getting more phone calls, more preaching, more training, more discipleship opportunities than ever. I'm like, well, hey, let's fuel that thing. Let's switch this thing into permanent income. Let's work the budget out. Now you know exactly what you got to go do. And he's like, this is crazy. I don't even need to raise money. And that ministry group, they're going to pay me as well. I'm like, look at God. He just shifted. That retirement line wasn't a retirement line. Instead, it was just another Jordan River to another promised land, with brand new problems, but brand new expansion. And it was so beautiful. I was getting emotional on that phone call because I'm like, man, this is so cool. And it got me so excited for my next season and how this thing is going to keep playing out with the Lord. But they had to unplug also from what they'd been doing for 40 years. And took a year to like let the dust settle, see what life was looking like in retirement, missing out on the income and go, where's our budget? What are we going to even be doing? They took all the family on a big vacation. And so that was another thing they told me, say, we want to make sure that we fund a family vacation every year. I said, well, what's the budget for that? So we wrote that in there. I'm like, man, this is so cool. This is so awesome. What's even better, if the Lord calls one of them home before the other, nothing changes. They could still keep going and leave an inheritance when the second one passes away. The cost of your current comfort, staying comfortable, is always paid for by the compromise of the environment that your children are supposed to inherit. The cost of your current comfort is always paid for by the compromise of the environment your children are supposed to inherit. Let's go back to my custodial job in that 2-story school building. If I had just stayed plugged into that one safe outlet because I was too scared to move, I could have kept that one spot pristine. But what happens to the rest of the school? The dirt, the dust, the trash in the classrooms would pile up every single night. And eventually, it'd become completely toxic, uninhabitable, unenjoyable. And who ultimately suffers? The kids. The very people the building was built for to educate and grow. Those are the ones that would be paying the price for my refusal to unplug, make a transition. The custodian's refusal to move. And you got to think of yourself as a custodian for what your kids, the next generation, is to inherit. We're custodians of the kingdom. We're custodians of the garden. And as an entrepreneur, when you choose to stay safe in a limited situation just because it pays the bills, you are limiting the territory of your next generation. You're trading your time freedom, your financial freedom, and your ability to fully present with your family, to be fully present with your family, just to stay tethered to a single wall socket. Dominion requires you to take over the whole building. And God looks at our fear and our financial situation, and he says, my son, my daughter, your inability to unplug is limiting you from taking over what I'm trying to give you. And Proverbs 13:12 says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And Billy Graham says the greatest legacy one can pass on to one's children and grandchildren is not money or other material things accumulated in one's life, but rather a legacy of character and faith. So if you really want to leave a legacy of faith, you have to stop acting out of fear. You have to audit your foundation, look at the territory, see what's going on, and make the executive decision to pull the plug and transition so that your kids can say, my dad, my mom, my leader, they moved in faith and they had incredible character. Because sovereignty requires the courage to unplug. You cannot experience the power of the next dimension until you are willing to let go of the outlet of your current season. Deuteronomy 8:18, one of my favorite scriptures, but remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth and so confirms his covenant. It's a covenant that God makes with you for you to be able to produce wealth. What for? Kingdom expansion. But if you're standing in a tight corner of your industry right now, if you're holding on to a situation that's starving your purpose because you are terrified of a temporary moment of transition and asking, where's the money going to come from? Or what are they going to think of me? It's time for a site inspection. Stop letting the fear of provision paralyze your expansion. Go to purposedrivenbuilder.com right now. Take the 60-second builder inspection quiz. Let's find the cracks. Let's unplug from the comfort, and let's build together. You've been watching the Jesse Wood Show with Jesse Wood. I love you. Let's unplug, transition together. Let's build together.